life size of the impossible. Here is what so many said could never come to be. Here, for the moment at least, is the Jewish state, Israel, very much alive and celebrating the miracle of its own existence. This indeed is victory with all its trimmings. This is the result of an effort of centuries. A Jewish state with sailors and citizens, a state with Jewish soldiers and officers and statesmen. Israel has been reborn. It seems undeniable. The flag that now flies over this land is certainly the flag of Israel. This is triumph. And here, of course, is one of its prime rewards, the right to vote in the world's newest democracy. For this moment in their history, the people of Israel can choose their own leaders in their own country. Even while it's being born, the machinery of government starts turning out a new democratic life in the Middle East. Everyone living within the borders has a right to vote. Arabs as well as Jews. Soldiers as well as civilians. This, without doubt, is a moment of great achievement. A constituent assembly has been elected. To mark the event, a tree is planted. This is a moment of historic significance. The leaders of the young republic gather for the first inauguration in more than 2,000 years of Jewish history. Dr. Chaim Weizmann takes the oath of office. This is a moment of incredible promise. But, just a minute. Listen carefully, and remember, this is only a promise. All this is the result of only one victory. This comes from winning but a single battle. The continuing war, the real war, the struggle for Jewish survival, that war can still be lost. In spite of the assembly, regardless of the soldiers, the war can still be lost. That war goes on in many parts of the world. It can end in only one way. The last Jew who is burdened by the need or impelled by the desire must come home. That victory is yet to be achieved. Anything less than such a victory is defeat. In Israel, they knew all this even before the fighting started. They knew it in Hatzor and throughout the land. They knew that the future of every Jew was involved in their fight. And they knew that they had to win. They prepared in Hatzor, and they waited. And they watched. They knew they were outnumbered, outmatched in equipment. But they didn't retreat. There was no place to go. They fought back in Hatzor. Not as soldiers fight to hold a battle line, but the way families fight for their homes. Their doorstep was the battle line. They were fighting for their farms and fields. story of Hatzor was repeated all over Israel. The attacks were renewed day after day, week after week. But the people of Hatzor didn't dare lose. They had to win. And they did. Their struggle was a bitter one. They suffered many casualties. And yet they knew all along that Hatzor was only a pinpoint on the map of battle. Just as the front in Israel was only part of the greater war, the worldwide struggle. During the lulls in the fighting, their thoughts were for news from other sectors, where the battle continues. They waited for word from the Jews in Europe, where the war is far from won, in the DP camps of Germany, and in other misery-ridden areas of the continent. Jews are still struggling to stay alive. The long-suffering victims of Hitlerism, 4 years after Hitler's death. This is a different kind of war. The enemies are intangible, like time and space. But the goals are concrete: to bring out of Europe the many who can leave, to help rehabilitate those who must stay. Here among the Jews of Europe, the war for Israel enters a decisive phase. This battle may decide whether the state will succeed or fail, because many of these people are actually part of the population of Israel, not yet moved into their new homes. They must be moved quickly before they lose their chance to leave. The war against misery in Europe makes fewer headlines than a military campaign. It's fought in limited engagements. A flank is attacked here, a pocket eliminated there, cutting off the time spent waiting for liberation, wiping out the space between these people and a decent life. The attack goes on by train and boat and plane, in Europe, North Africa, and even in the Far East. In some sectors, victories are being achieved. One of the greatest victories against the camps was won on the island of Cyprus. This was no ordinary battle against an ordinary prison. Cyprus was for the elite, those who had escaped the mass murders of the Nazis and had cheated the gas chambers. But on Cyprus, they waited for years for the prison gates to be opened. On January the 25th, when the Jews of Israel were holding their first elections, the Jews of Cyprus were at last being given their release to final freedom. The prison camps of Cyprus were emptied as they had been filled, with careful attention to detail, precision, and order. Every piece of equipment which had been issued was returned, checked off, accounted for. Nothing was lost, except perhaps a year or two out of the life of these prisoners. During the 2 years when 50,000 people were forcibly held on the island, the legality of this camp was never established by any tribunal. Until now, this has been the pattern of the return to freedom. Always it depended on a list, a regulation, an arbitrary decision by an authority beyond Jewish control. Now, on Cyprus and elsewhere, the gates are wide open. Now the families on their way to Israel can be stopped by only one hand, our hand. Because now it's up to us to decide how many shall come in and how many shall wait. On their part, the Jews of Cyprus were sustained by the story of Exodus from the Bible. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, and I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrow. And I am come down to deliver them unto a land good and large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. The last of the prisoners remaining in the camp achieved their exodus on February the 11th. This was their moment of victory. But their triumph, like the one at Hatzor, covered only a small sector in a very big war. The rest of the battle, the main battle, still lay ahead. In Israel, they've been working and building for years, making that land a home for all who might return. They've plowed and cultivated, drained and irrigated the wasteland. This work goes on at a greater pace than ever before. But today it's not enough. Each Jewish victory in another sector brings thousands of new citizens toward the new state. They've built factories, developed industries, the material foundation of a homeland. Today it's not enough. Not when Israel must receive 250,000 Jews in 1 year. Every gain in production must keep pace with the increasing number of new arrivals. For many things that will be produced tomorrow, a need 3 times as large already exists today. It's impossible for this one sector in Israel to bear the brunt of a global war effort. No matter how much they sacrifice, no matter how hard they work, no matter how much they do, it's not enough. They cannot do it alone. For this reason, final victory in the war against Jewish homelessness now depends on us. If this drive should fail, then everything we have built up in the last 10 years will collapse. On the home front, it's a war of construction, a quiet war with quiet, unwarlike aims, such as a home for each family of DPs. Here and there, a victory's been realized, a glorious conquest, with the luxury of Venetian blinds, the miracle of running water, the wonder of a full linen closet. But there is still so much more that must be done for Jews from the 4 corners of the world. This is the long-awaited moment. This is homecoming. This is the land of milk and honey, the haven of the weary, refuge of young and old, shelter of the lame and the halt. But when they arrive in the promised land, many find themselves waiting once more. In camps. Waiting for a home. If we keep them waiting, these reception centers will become DP camps. In Israel, their own homeland. Is this something to celebrate? Is this final battle going to be lost because the task and the opportunity are bigger than ever before? If we fail them, Then Hatzor need never have been fought. Then why did its people risk their lives? And for what did workmen labor night and day? Are camps in Europe being emptied just to make new ones in Israel? Was the rabbi on Cyprus praying for a hopeless dream? Did the soldiers of Israel die for any final purpose, or just for a few months of flag waving? Will the military achievement turn out to have achieved nothing more than these ruins? Here, too, is a portrait of Israel. Here is a picture, life-size, of what may be defeat. Here is how the war can be lost. The front, in this final stage of the war, extends from every Jew who needs help to every Jew who can help him. We at our end have the power to achieve or to destroy the promise of the promised land.